finally, what we have on this slide is, I think, um, a contrast that sort of gets to some of what and collaborators were talking about in their article about sense making versus positivism. On the right, you see the same top level of the ACM classification that I showed on the previous slide. On the left, you see a tag cloud. I can't remember exactly where I got this tag cloud, but if you're not familiar with Web 2.0 environments, a tag cloud is created when there's a web resource like a blog or Flickr photos or something like that, where there's a set of information resources in one environment, like the individual post in a blog, and people, whether it's the creators of the information content or it's people who visit the site, can tag with their own self-generated keywords, uncontrolled vocabulary, can just type in words that they think somehow describe the content of that information resource. So a tag cloud, for instance, if you have a blog that has 50 or 60 posts in it, and each of those 50 or 60 posts is tagged with two or three different tags or keywords that describe what the post is about, then that entire blog of 50 or 60 posts would have a tag cloud that is a list of every single tag that occurs in the blog, and then the tag is made larger or smaller based on how frequently that tag appears throughout all of the posts in the blog. Since tags can be collaborative, in some environments anyone can put a tag on an information resources, whereas in other environments only people with specific kinds of access can tag resources. But it is meant to be sort of like very user oriented and very bottom up kind of cataloging. You don't have one authority or one professional who is given, ultimate authority to decide what this is about, and they have to have years of training in library school, and they must know the principles of thesaurus construction and controlled vocabulary. Like, none of those rules apply in the world of tagging. Tagging is also known as folksonomy, and it's the idea that cataloging can be democratic. So in this sense, tagging is a lot like sense making, because the tags that get applied probably probably depend on the situation in which the information is being published and the type of information that it is and the type of people who are using and reading and sharing that information. So that's a very sense making view of the world and a relativistic way of coming up with a vocabulary for describing a collection of information resources. And then on the right, you have the fixed ontology that was described as being from the positivistic paradigm that says that there is a limited number of fixed categories, that any information that's going to be published in this digital library will belong to one or more of these categories or their subcategories, and that's the way it is, and there's no changing it, and there's no democracy, but it's more effective because maybe there's an agreed upon vocabulary that everybody's using. So those are two examples of classification tasks that can be done according to the two paradigms that we've talked about in our discussion today. So this concludes our online session for. We've talked about some big high-level concepts that have to do with the psychological and philosophical underpinnings of library and information science, what Marcia Bates calls the invisible substrate of library and information science. Next week, we're going to start getting quite a bit more practical. We'll start out talking about relevance, which has, a super conceptual or philosophical kind of side to it, but it also has practical ways that it gets integrated into the information seeking process. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll go into discussing categories, hierarchies, and facets. Categories, hierarchies, and facets are all ways of organizing and representing information. These things really get at the heart of how we do what we do and the organization of information. So you have a reading assignment to do chapters 1 and an excerpt that pertains to categories. There are reading guidelines posted in the reading guidelines discussion board, so you might want to take a look at those before you actually do the reading. Chapters 1 and 2 are really meant for you to skim to get an introductory sense of what 670 and the organization of information is all about. And then that final excerpt from, I think it's pages 380 through 388 or thereabouts. It's on your syllabus. But that last excerpt is really specifically about categories and talks about different theories of categories and sort of what sorts of implications those have for the work that we do as information professionals. So I look forward to seeing everyone again next week in person at Shady Grove, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Please feel free to contact me on the message boards by phone, text, or email if you have any questions about the course or about this lecture. Bye-bye.